Let's continue our story about the Dercum's first winter in Summit County. In Idaho Springs, we had found two pair of wooden skis, short enough for Rolf and Sonny, but there were no bindings and nowhere to find or buy any. With rubber strips from old inner tubing, Max made the bindings. Ski boots for children were unheard of. We'd have to think of something. They did have good rubber overshoes and plenty of wool socks. By wearing the socks inside their shoes, then another pair of socks over the shoes, and then the rubber boots, their feet would stay warm and dry. Strapping on the little skis, they would play in the snow, crawling, sliding, climbing, and running. Soon they were unaware they had the skis on and could play and slide with no trouble. But where could we all go skiing? In early January, we had a surprise visit from a young man who had been on Max's Penn State ski team before the war. He was Max Peters, and he had just returned from Italy, where with the 10th Mountain Division he had been a member of the U.S. ski troops. Before going back to Penn State, he wanted to revisit Camp Hale, where he had trained. We all piled into our convertible and took off for Cooper Hill and Camp Hale, both of which we had never seen, but had heard so much about during the war. Cooper Hill was quite a disappointment. Because the hill was so short, it seemed like one turn, and we were at the bottom. We took turns staying with the children at the base of the lift so that they wouldn't get lost. We decided it'd be fun to have dinner in historic Leadville at the old Vendome Hotel. When they were training at Camp Hale, the ski troopers would come into Leadville for excitement. From what Max Peters told us, there was plenty of that in the old mining town. On the way back home, we reached the big, brightly lighted mining operation at Climax on Fremont Pass. The 600-foot ski hill across the road from the mine was well lit, showing the beautiful unmarked powder snow. Since it was already dark and the youngsters were getting sleepy, we tucked them into the two down sleeping bags we always kept in the back of the car. Clamping on our skis, we climbed up to the warming hut. Here we found the reason for the untracked snow. The skiers standing around the pot-bellied stove told us that the rope tow would soon start. They only operated for the families at Climax on Wednesday nights and all day Saturday and Sunday. This was a Wednesday, and it had snowed soft new powder on Monday and Tuesday. We were welcome to join them and to come on over again whenever we wished. We skied until 10 o'clock. It was heavenly, although my arms ached from the rope tow. It was an unreal world with the exhilaration of floating through all that light powder in and out of the tree shadows. Below and across the valley, bluish-green flares of the Climax mine lighted the night sky. We could hear dynamite blasts from the mine every now and then. On the way home, I told Max that I felt like I was going like hell and probably headed there too. What added to the feeling was the music. Someone had placed loudspeakers on the rope tow poles. They were playing Grieg's Peer Gynt Suite and the Hall of the Mountain King. It was especially appropriate. An hour later found us tired but happy at home in our little cabin. But where to put our guest? Well, in the kitchen, of course, on the folding army cot. Any good ski trooper had his own sleeping bag. The next morning, Max decided to explore an area they had heard was a tremendous alpine-type bowl. Where they went, I had no idea. I heard Max tell Max Peters that if you look south from the top of Loveland Pass, you could look right into this area. Late in the afternoon, they returned and over supper described their trip. It's like the open slopes of the Alps in Switzerland. We came upon two old log cabins. That means there must have been some mining up there. The next day, Max Peters had to leave. I wondered if we'd ever see him again. Years later, he became Dean of Colorado University's School of Engineering. Each winter, we see him at all the veterans' ski races. Over a beer, after the day's race, we sit down and reminisce of that powder snow evening at Climax. Max seemed very quiet the rest of the day. I finally asked him if something was worrying him. No, he said, but I've been thinking of those two cabins up in that high alpine meadow. We almost missed them because they were so covered with snow. If Max hadn't sailed off the roof of one of them, we might not have seen them at all. What I think I'll do is find out about them before the county commissioners meet. Jim told me that if taxes haven't been paid on old mining patents, you can bid on them. On second thought, maybe I better go to the courthouse tomorrow and see if they're patented. The treasurer would know since patented mines are taxed. This was all bewildering to me. Why on earth, Max, I asked, do you want to acquire some old cabins way up where you have to ski tour so far to get to them? Max laughed. It's not the cabins I'm interested in, honey. Well, why then, I questioned. The fact is, there might be a mill site and some mines up there. Remember when I worked for the Forest Service back in '42? I got to know and like a Forest Service ranger at the Idaho Springs office, a fellow named Slim Davis. He told me that the best possible future ski area around was that Alpine Bowl up there. I've been looking at it every time we go over Loveland Pass. And after all that Dimp has told me about claims and patents, I'm just curious. Back in October, Max started to grow a beard. By January, it was quite full and curly, which was helpful when